Senator Sanders is with us. Senator?
Good to be with you, Tom. Sorry I'm late.
That's quite all right. Welcome, and thank you so much for being with us. This is our Brunch with Bernie a day early because Senator Sanders' schedule has gotten kind of crazy, and you're only able to be with us for a half hour. Do I understand that correctly?
Perhaps a little bit longer than that, Tom, but not terribly long.
Okay.
We've got a busy day today.
Yeah, I absolutely understand. Just feel free to let me know whenever you need to go. And so we'll start out with
let me begin,
your thoughts.
Tom, by expressing what I believe are the views of virtually everybody in America about these horrific shootings that took place last night in a Charleston church. And what it tells us is that the ugly stain of racism still taints our nation. I think it fills all of us with outrage, disgust, and a deep, deep sadness. The hateful killing of 9 people praying inside a church is a horrific reminder that while we have made significant progress in advancing civil rights in this country, we are still far away from eradicating racism, and our thoughts and prayers are with the families and their congregation. So I did want to say that as we begin the program.
Yeah. And
this is a busy week. As you've indicated, this fast-track legislation is back on the floor of the House now. This legislation, which will enable the president to go forward with one more disastrous trade agreement on top of many others like NAFTA, CAFTA, permanent normal trade relations with China, which have cost us millions of decent-paying jobs, has got to be defeated. And I will work with every union in the country which is in opposition to this legislation, virtually every major environmental group in this country which is in opposition to this legislation, and many, many religious groups who know how bad this legislation is. This bill is supported by virtually every major corporation in America. They love unfettered free trade because it enables them to shut down plants in America and send our jobs abroad and pay people pennies an hour in low-wage countries and then bring those products back into America. It's very much supported by the pharmaceutical industry, which will be able to raise prices for medicine in poor countries around the world. So there are a million reasons to be in opposition to this. Over the last number of weeks on the program, we have discussed many of them. But I will do everything that I can to see that this legislation does not become law. Trade is a good thing, but we need trade policies which create decent-paying jobs in the United States, which help us expand the middle class, not trade policies which cost us jobs and lead us to a race to the bottom with lower and lower wages. So that's an issue we are going to stay on. Let me mention my pleasure in seeing Pope Francis showing a great deal of courage in standing up for science and issuing an encyclical which makes it clear to leaders throughout the world that climate change is real. It is already causing devastating problems, and often those problems impact the lowest income people around the world, and that this is an issue that cannot be swept under the rug, that it is not good enough for here in the Congress for Republicans to tell us they are not scientists. Well, they may not be scientists, but the scientists who are scientists, the people who have studied this issue most thoroughly, understand almost unanimously that climate change is real and caused by human activity and carbon emissions. So I applaud the Pope for standing with many of us around the world who are determined to do everything that we can to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel and into energy efficiency and such sustainable energies as wind, solar, geothermal, and biomass. Just one other issue out there, Tom. Yesterday, I was on the floor talking about a recent Government Accountability Office study which talked about hunger within the senior community. And the fact of the matter is that nearly 4 million low-income seniors, that's more than 1 in 5, do not know and are not secure about knowing where their next meal is coming from. So there's a mythology, the mythology out there pushed by big money interest and conservative politicians is that, well, seniors are pretty well off, and that's why we can cut Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. Not a problem. And the answer is absolutely not. Poverty among seniors is growing. There are seniors living on incomes, Tom, that I do not have any idea how they can survive. We're talking about $8,000, $9,000 a year. These are folks who, everything being equal because they're older, need medicine, more medicine than younger people. They need to keep their homes warmer in the wintertime. And they are having today to make the choice between feeding themselves adequately or providing medicine or heating their homes. And that is not what this country is about. And let me just remind everybody, and it's easy to forget, we live in the wealthiest country today in the history of the world. And yet very few people feel that, understand that, because we also are living in a nation where the vast majority of that wealth rests in the hands of very, very few people. So this is not like we are a poor country and we have to sit down and say, oh, it's just too bad we're poor. Our kids can't get an adequate education. We're poor. We can't feed the hungry. We can't house people who have no homes. We're just so poor. That is not America. This is a country in which there is extraordinary wealth, where workers today are producing far more because of an exploding technology. But our problem is that 99% of all new income is going to the top 1%, and the top 1/10 of 1% owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. One family, the Walton family, owns more wealth than the bottom 42% of the American people. So what this debate is about, what is going on here in Congress, is whether or not we have a society and an economy that works for all of our people. Today, I just was late, Tom, because I came from a press event with maybe 100, 200, I don't know, Teamsters and other working people who are trying to fight back against pension cuts. They've worked their whole lives, and now they're looking at the possibility of major cuts in their pensions. This is going on in almost every aspect of our lives.
Amazing. We'll pick up phone calls right after the break, Senator.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Okay. We'll be right back with Senator Bernie Sanders. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour, or actually a little less than an hour here today, but on Thursday. We are live right now, and we'll be back with your calls for Senator Sanders right after this.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And Senator Sanders' Senate website is sanders.senate.gov. You can sign up for his newsletter, The Bernie Buzz, there. There's all kinds of great news. Check it out. Welcome back. Senator, you're still with us, right?
I am right here, Tom.
Okay, let's pick up the phone calls here. Sydney and Pollock, Louisiana. You are on the air, watching us on Free Speech TV on the Dish Network. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes, sir. Mr. Sanders, in Alexandria, Louisiana, the Veterans Hospital has been reduced to a walk-in clinic with no emergency room. They don't perform operations anymore. And I was told that the doctor's salaries are no longer keeping up with the private sector, and the VA hospitals can't get doctors because of this. Do you know anything about it?
Well, I do know something about it because I was the former chairman of the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee. Sydney, what we did just about a year ago is to put over $5 billion into the VA so that they can hire more doctors, more nurses, more medical personnel, and eliminate some of the very long waiting times that exist around this country. And we're going to make certain that the VA spends that money effectively. There are many places around the country where the VA is understaffed and people are waiting too long to get into the facility. So the answer to your question, Sydney, is I don't know about the particular case in Louisiana, but I do know that that we are trying to strengthen the VA and give them the resources they need so that every veteran who walks into the VA gets quality care in a timely manner.
Steve, watching Free Speech TV in Ridgefield, Connecticut. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, Senator Sanders. How are you?
I'm good.
Hi, Tom. How are you?
Great.
Big fan of both of you guys. So I have a kind of a statement with a question at the end. I have been an independent voter my entire life, and I am going to become a Democratic voter primarily to endorse you and vote for you in the primary, and also to oppose Jim Himes because of his stance on the TPA and the TAA and the TPP. So my question is, I'm curious, have you been getting a lot of phone calls about people taking stances in that way? And then another quick question is, did you like the free endorsement from Neil Young after Donald Trump stole his song?
Well, I did. I very much appreciate Neil Young's endorsement. He's certainly one of the great entertainers in our country, and I appreciate that. We are, Steve, getting many calls and have been for a number of weeks and months in opposition to Fast Track and the TPP. And as I mentioned earlier, I think the American people understand that when we have an agreement pushed by corporate America, Wall Street, and the drug companies, you should be pretty suspicious about what that trade agreement does. And what it does is continues the process by which companies can outsource our jobs to low-wage countries. It also includes provisions for an investor-state dispute approach, which basically says that if a government, local, state, federal, national government, is trying to protect the interest of its people, say in healthcare or in environmental protection, that future corporate profits can override those decisions made by democratically elected governments, which to me is beyond comprehension.
Yeah. We'll be back with more of your questions for Senator Sanders right after this. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. It's our Brunch with Bernie. A little less than an hour, a day early. And Senator, we'll pick up more calls here.
Let's do it, Tom.
Okay. Marcia in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Marcia, please keep it short. We have a lot of people and very little time.
Hi. I called my state representative, Diane Black. I called her yesterday to find out how she voted on TAA, and the person who answered proceeded to give me some explanation of the TPP, and I'm like, no, I want to know how she voted on the TAA. We went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and finally she said, well, she voted against it. I don't believe it. I know that Diane Black has been out there pumping up the TPP. I was lied to by her office.
So your question, Marcia.
My question, what do I do about it? How do I...
Well, for a start, Marcia, I mean, this is a vote you can't hide from. It's, you either vote for it or you vote against it, and it's right there on the official record. Just go to the go to your web, go to your computer.
Thomas.gov, isn't it?
Yeah, Thomas, and you'll find every vote that is cast, every member's vote is listed. It's something that nobody can run away from. It's there in public.
Okay. Dennis in Alexandria, Virginia, listening on Sirius. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, Senator Sanders. This is Dennis. Good luck in your quest for the presidency, incidentally. My question is, why can't a law be made to imprison CEOs? There's a thread of greed that's gone through our history, and all they do is pass the fines along for their illegal activity to the shareholders, and not one of them ever go to jail for anything. So there's no incentive for them to stop doing what they've been doing forever.
You're talking about companies that plead guilty to felonies. Thank you, Dennis.
Well, I think Dennis raises a good point. I'm not sure that no CEOs have gone to jail, but relatively few do. I mean, I think, for example, Time after time, we are seeing one or another or a group of large financial institutions pleading guilty to fraud and being fined billions and billions of dollars collectively. Not to mention the illegal activities that took place that drove this country into the worst recession in modern history when Wall Street collapsed. Do I think there was illegal behavior? I do. Do I think that people who commit illegal behavior, which results in millions of people losing their jobs and their life savings and their homes and devastating the entire country, deserve to be punished? Yeah, I do. But I think we live in a culture, Dennis, which is fairly pathetic, which says that the wealthy and the powerful and all of their money and all of their lawyers can avoid imprisonment. And yet if you are some kid doing some minor criminal activity, you can end up in jail. That's the nature of our society today, and that's the nature of our criminal justice system, and obviously that has got to change. And that's something we have got to work on. Justice should be applied to all people, regardless of their status in our society.
Drew in Olathe, Kansas. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Olathe, actually, but
Olathe. Thank you.
Senator Sanders, Thom Hartmann. First, Senator Sanders, I can't wait for you to come down here to Kansas and campaign. But my question is, why, between the years and the gap of NAFTA and TPP, have we not seen any small organizations, small businesses, Amnesty International, all these other organizations come together and draft a grassroots bill as an alternative to this free trade agreement?
As fair trade instead of free trade, you mean?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and Tom, you can help me out on this. I mean, I think there have been efforts made. I know the unions have come together and other grassroots organizations, not only unions but environmental groups, to say basically that trade is not a bad thing. You know, sometimes I and others are being painted as we're terrible people, we want to build a wall around America, we don't want to trade. That's nonsense. But what we understand is when you have trade agreements engineered and pushed by large corporations who want to throw American workers out on the street, these are not good trade agreements for our people. And as often as not, they're not good at trade agreements for people in other countries as well. So I think Drew is right. It's not enough to say we dislike and are vigorously opposed to TPP. What we do need are trade agreements that work for the American worker, that work for low-income workers around the world, that work for workers on both sides, but do not just simply work for the large CEOs, for the CEOs of large multinational corporations. And that is something. I think Drew was right. I think we have to be more definitive and start developing legislation and trade agreements that would accomplish those goals.
John in Voorhees, New Jersey. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hello?
Hi, John. Quickly, please.
Yes, I'm just very upset and trying to figure out what I can do. I know the unions are having a hard time with pensions, but also Republican governors are trying to take teachers' pensions away and everything.
So the question is, what can we do about that?
Well, John, you know, what I talk about is the need for a political revolution. You know, we are being attacked on so many different levels. Teachers are being attacked for being greedy and terrible people because they have a decent pension. I just met with workers from the Teamsters and the International Association of Machinists, people who were promised that the salaries, that the wages they gave up, the health care benefits they gave up that went into pensions would be guaranteed. And then they wake up and find that there may be very significant cuts in those pensions. There are efforts today to cut Social Security. I go to budget hearing. After budget hearing, the ranking member of the Senate Budget Committee. Republicans are heavy into wanting to cut Social Security. Their presidential candidates are. We're being attacked on numerous fronts. And what we need is to stand together strongly and say enough is enough. The government's got to start working for all of us and not just for wealthy campaign contributors.
Amen. Senator, will you be with us in 6 minutes at the end of the newscast?
I can be with you in 6 minutes, yes.
Okay, great. Stick around. Senator Sanders is with us. It's Brunch with Bernie on Thursday here on the Thom Hartmann Program. We'll be back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-536-2370.
And be sure to check out Bernie's website at sanders.senate.gov. He also has a very significant presence over on Facebook. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Our Brunch with Bernie, a day early, Thursday, is going on right now. And, Senator, I understand that we can have you until 1:45, about another 10 minutes?
Right. That's exactly right.
Okay, great. So let's pick up some quick phone calls here. Thomas in Sacramento, California. You're on the air with Senator Sanders. Please keep it short.
Yes, I'll make it real quick. It's an honor to speak to both of you guys, and thank you for being a voice for the middle class, Bernie and Tom. Real quickly, is what can be done about the poison pill that the Republicans put into the post office during that lame duck session? And could you also be a voice for the post office workers with all the rest of the laborers?
Thomas, I have been working a very long time, and I think if you talk to the major unions, they will tell you that I've been one of the leaders in trying to fight against efforts to essentially dismember and destroy the United States Postal Service. We beat back an effort some years ago that would have required, as I recall, shutting down something like 15,000 rural post offices in America. Right now, we are working hard and have had some success in putting back a proposal which should have shut down some 82 processing plants all over this country. We came very close at the end of last session to get a moratorium on the slowing down of mail delivery standards. It used to be overnight. Now it is much slower than that. People all over the country are now perceiving correctly that their mail is being delivered slower than it used to be, and I want to change that. I think the poison pill that I believe that Thomas is referring to is the fact that every single year, uniquely of any government agency or any entity in the United States, private or public, Postal Service has to come up with $5.5 billion for future health, future retiree health benefits. And that is just an incredible burden and just not something the Postal Service should have to do. So, yes, Thomas, we are working very hard on this issue. I believe in a strong Postal Service, and we're going to work with the unions to make that happen.
Senator, just FYI, the fast track TPA just passed the House of Representatives by one vote with 28 Democratic votes. Don't know if you want to comment on that, or should we just go to the next question?
Obviously, that is something I'm not happy to hear. It will now come back to the Senate, and the issue in the Senate is whether members will vote for those Democrats who voted for the voted for fast track, whether or not they will vote for fast track if it doesn't have trade adjustment assistance. We hope they will not. We hope that we can keep this legislation from getting 60 votes, and we will do everything that we can to make sure that fast track is not.
So now it's time for us to call our senators again.
Yeah, you're back to the Senate again.
There you go.
So,
okay, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that.
The issue here is you have Democratic senators who voted for fast track, who voted for it because they said that the trade adjustment assistance was in it. Right now, the trade adjustment assistance is not in it. Will they keep their word, or will they vote just simply for the fast track?
Josh in Syracuse, New York. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Thanks, Senator Sanders. I'm hoping for the best for the future, hoping for you to win no matter what. My question is, infrastructure is going to be a must-have for the future. So are you willing to provide tax credits to those companies that use sustainable methods and renewable resources for the rebuilding of our country and taxing those that don't?
Absolutely. Josh, well, it's not just infrastructure generally we refer to as roads and bridges and water systems. I think you're talking about energy issues. And I have co-authored legislation, which is the most comprehensive climate change legislation ever authored. And what that legislation would do is impose a tax on carbon, because we have to move away from carbon and fossil fuel, and we have to move to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. I have introduced legislation and support legislation to provide subsidies to those companies who are producing wind, solar, geothermal, and other sustainable energies. It's extremely important that we move in that direction.
Stephanie in Kankakee, Illinois. You're on the air with Senator Sanders, and please keep it short. Stephanie? No Stephanie. Penny in Sedalia, Missouri. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hey, good morning. It's an honor to speak with you, Senator. I fully support your candidacy for president. I was sorry to hear that the House just passed the TPA. But my question is, are you ever going to come to Missouri?
The answer is we are going to go to as many states in this country as we possibly can, Penny. And the reason for that is that, yes, it's very important to have a strong presence in the early primary and caucus states in Iowa and New Hampshire, in South Carolina and Nevada. But I believe that there are states in this country, in the South and elsewhere, that have not heard progressive voices. And I believe that there are thousands and thousands of progressives who want to come together and figure out how they can become active in the political process. So to answer your question, I will do everything that I can to make sure that Missouri and other southern states are on our schedule.
Bruce in Atlanta, Georgia. You're on the air with Senator Sanders. Please keep it short. Bruce? No, Bruce. Bruce is on line 10. That's the one I think we've been having trouble with. Omar in Calabasas, California. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Good morning. Senator, why don't you make 1% Wall Street sales tax on both Wall Street and LaSalle Street, meaning derivatives will be charged as well, a 1% tax on them instead of whining about, the rich, the 70%, which kind of they want to make you look like a person who's against successful people. A 1% tax.
Well, I am not whining. What I do is talk about facts, and we're introducing, are working right now on a comprehensive tax bill. But Omar, what I will tell you is we have already introduced a Wall Street speculation tax, which I think covers the issue that you are talking about. And it will have the benefit of bringing in a very substantial sum of money and also have the additional effect of dampening speculation on Wall Street, which is something that should be done. So I think, Omar, to answer your question, I think we have already introduced that legislation.
Daniel in Hinsdale, Illinois. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes, and quick to the question. Senator, would you agree to characterize the situation of the Palestinians as apartheid? And as President of the United States, would you do anything different than what has been the U.S. policy of seemingly unrestricted absolute support for Israel no matter what it does?
I think, Danielle, that we need an even-handed policy in the Middle East, which has not been the case. I think Israel is entitled to live in peace and security. I think the Palestinians are entitled to a state of their own. I think that the United States should be supportive of helping to establish an economy there, which is strong. Today it is a disaster. And I think, to answer your question, that the United States should play an even-handed role in dealing with both groups.
Mariana in Pomona, California. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Thank you for taking my call. I'm not sure how familiar you are with the field of evaluation, but it is the International Year of Evaluation. So I wanted to know, Senator Sanders, can you please share your perspective on the importance of accountability and assigning value to our political process, which is the basis of evaluation theory?
Marianne, you have to take that another sentence further, because I don't know that I am familiar with what you are talking about.
Okay, so evaluation is looking at how effective something is working and making sure that we're accountable to that. So I was just wondering what you thought, sure. How important it is for that to be in our.
Well, of course, process. I was a mayor for 8 years, and it goes without saying that you want to establish policies that work effectively, that solve the problems you want to solve, and that are done in a cost-effective manner. And I think one of the principles that many mayors, especially governors as well, try to work on is what we call best practices. And that means if an idea is generated in Nevada or in South Dakota that makes sense, people in Vermont should steal that idea and vice versa. But you certainly want to look at the data. You want to make sure that the programs are working the way they were designed to work, and that they're working cost effectively.
Senator, we have just 1 minute left till you have to go. Final thoughts?
Well, the final thoughts are, and I think I was asked earlier in the show about what we do about the various problems facing our country. And in 30 seconds, I think the answer is pretty simple, and that is that we need a political revolution in this country, by which I mean political consciousness is changed, that people become far more active in politics, and start electing people and who are going to be representing the vast majority of our people, who are middle class and working families, and that at the same time we're going to take on boldly those candidates who are sponsored by a billionaire class, who get all of their money for campaigns from the very wealthy and are doing the business of the very wealthy. That's the kind of political revolution that we need, Tom. And when we do that, I think there's very little that we as a country can't accomplish.
Thank you. So I so agree. Thank you so much, Senator Sanders, for being with us this week.
Thank you, Tom. Take care.
I wish you the very best.